Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started here. So again, thanks for joining us. We have so this is Brandon Van Cleve here. I'm Vice President of Pine Cove Consulting, based here in Bozeman, Montana. We have Dan Russell on with us, who is our sales engineer with Sophos. And our goal today, so as many of you know, we try to push some content out via webinar once a month. And we thought this would be a start of one that we do frequently in basically giving the latest and greatest in Sophos. We do so much around Sophos, and Sophos has such a large portfolio. We thought it would be fitting to keep everyone up to speed on a more frequent basis of just the latest updates to current solutions, maybe new solutions that are coming out. So you'll start to see a recurring theme. It'll be different content every time, but we are going to do this kind of what's new with Sophos a little more frequently. As we do all of our webinars, we really encourage Q&A at the end. So please, you'll see the questions tab there, a little button you can click. Throw your questions in there. I'll make sure I get to as many as I can at the end. So yeah, throw those in there at any time. And other than that, I think we'll get started. So just first, I think we probably know a lot of the people on the call, but who is Pine Cove Consulting? So we're an IT consulting company based in Bozeman. 25 years, this is our 25th year in the industry. Cybersecurity focused. You know, obviously this is a big challenge that we're facing with our customers, so we've really had to step up and you know, figure out what's going on and how we can protect our customers and our own business as best as we can. We support about 20,000 users a day, so you can see by the dots kind of around those where our clients are. We cover a lot of country, we cover a lot of customers, and that's about it on the who is Pine Cove. Just a little bit more on us in regards to cybersecurity and with Sophos. So we're the only platinum partner in the states of Montana and Wyoming with Sophos. I actually personally serve on the Partner Advisory Council for Sophos, which is a great insight into, you know, what's coming up, what are some of the things we're trying to tackle inside of Sophos, and really on the front lines of where Sophos is taking their solutions and their go-to-market strategy. So it's been a great resource for us and our customers to be able to be at the table with that group. We have a lot of Sophos certifications. We have Sophos architects, definitely dedicated to continuing our expertise. And we've won 2 national cybersecurity awards with Sophos, one in 2016 and one last year. So obviously very committed. We think they're leading the charge in fighting this battle, and we're glad we're on the same team as them. So I guess with that, I'm going to kick it over to Dan and let him talk about the latest and greatest in Sophos.
Great, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, so thought we'd, as Brandon mentioned, just kind of do it more not product specific, in depth, but more kind of high level. What's some of the new things, some of the new features, and so we'll kind of run through that. So as a quick agenda for the call, what we'll do is just kind of run through the portfolio and talk about that real quick, and then some of the new things. We've had a busy summer with some new launches, and so we'll talk about Intercept X for server, central email, some new Phish threat campaigns that are pretty cool. Wireless 2.0, that's a big one for us right now. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into that, and then at the end I'll kind of do. We won't go really too much into feature set, but just give you a sneak peek into the next XG firewall firmware, which has some really cool features, and then our enhancement on EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. And then I thought I'd just show a quick little, not really demo, but some of the things we'll be talking about in the email protection, just kind of show how they work, hopefully give you a little better understanding. So with that, kind of get going here. So talk real quick about the portfolio. So obviously you saw kind of what we were going to focus on today, but just kind of talk about how we look at security here in Sophos. So if we start at the top, we have the endpoint, intercept, and server, which it's one and the same. It's endpoint protection. But then as we move along, we got mobile device management, or kind of the new term is unified endpoint management. So whether it's a BYOD deployment or just needing to manage devices, push applications, set policies, and then encryption. So BitLocker and File Vault for Mac, being able to manage the encryption on those machines. And then Phish threat, we'll talk a little bit today. So that's going to be the end user, phishing training, simulation, and then email, which we'll talk on more in depth. Web gateway, wireless, we'll go into a little bit more depth, and we'll touch on some of the kind of new features in XG Firewall. So that's kind of the whole product portfolio, but at the center of that you see Sophos Central, and what's great about that is all of those things you can manage from one single cloud dashboard. So it really helps, when you're looking at security and consolidation, having a single pane of glass to manage all this instead of a bunch of different consoles that aren't really working together, which is a little bit of a lead in and kind of what differentiates us a little bit from the rest of the market. And that's the idea of synchronized security. A lot of you on the call have probably heard us talk about this, but we'll kind of touch on it real quick. So the idea of synchronized security is basically the products sharing actionable threat intelligence. So if we look at this example here, we have our endpoint and our next gen firewall. And what those are doing is they have a security heartbeat always going on. And so where that comes into play would be, for example, let's say the endpoint becomes compromised, it gets ransomware. What we do is we put that in what we call a red state while the threat's being cleaned up. And so while it's doing that, it's going to communicate that with the firewall and basically isolate it on the network so that it can't communicate with any other devices on the network in case of lateral movement or spreading. There's some other benefits there too on the firewall side. So a big problem with firewalls on the market right now is, and this is every vendor including Sophos, is you only get to see about 50% of your traffic visibility. And so what we're able to do with that security heartbeat is if there's traffic going to the firewall and it's uncategorized, unknown, basically what the firewall will do is ask the endpoint, hey, what was that traffic? Because obviously the endpoint knows. The endpoint will report back and say, oh, that was bittorrent.exe. Here's the file path. Now all of a sudden, when we look at our firewall traffic, we get 100% visibility and categorization. And then obviously taking that same concept across all of our products, we'll talk a little bit about how that works in wireless and mobile. But anyway, so we'll jump in here, talk about kind of the first new update, and that's going to be Intercept X for server. So a lot of you were probably familiar with our Intercept X, which is our endpoint. Now we're just treating it the same. It's Intercept X, it's endpoint server, has feature parity. So why do we need to protect servers? Really, the big thing is, server workloads are exponentially more valuable to hackers than endpoints are. So, we can look at some of these things, crypto mining, targeting server farms and cloud resources, just because, the resources are there, it's a lot more valuable. Ransomware and exploits, it's just, we need to, protect our servers just as if not more than endpoint. So when we look at the feature set of what's that mean? What does Intercept X for server mean? It's basically giving you that whole breadth of protection. So we still have that foundational, signatures, file scanning, but then taking kind of that next gen approach to the server. So bringing in the machine learning, using the deep learning model, exploit prevention, active adversary mitigation, which is going to be, think of an adversary has a toehold on the machine. What are some of the things they do? They try to escalate privileges, pull credentials out of the LSAS database, move laterally, code cave applications. So have all those mitigations built in there. Root cause analysis. So that's going to be that visual representation of what happened during attack, kind of from the start to finish and everything in between. The anti-ransomware piece, not only for file encryption, but disk encryption. And then a bunch of, all the stuff on the right that, we're pretty much used to with the synchronized security and application awareness. So how do you get it? Basically, it's policy. So if you're a current Sophos server customer, you go in to your server policy and kind of slide all the bars to the right and turn them on. And that'll essentially give you all that protection on your servers. So moving along to Sophos Central Email. So we just did this summer, we did a big launch with some enhanced protection against email. I'll kind of go through some of that. So just real quick, kind of looking at the problem, so according to some surveys, we see that 90% of businesses worry that their email security won't keep up with malware. I shocked that it's not 100%, even if you do have a good solution in place, but 41%, at least daily phishing attacks. 58% of all email out in the world is spam, and then 25% of IT time spent managing IT security. So how do we combat that? And so whether it's Office 365, Gmail, even on-premise Exchange, some of the things that Sophos email can complement that are the added protection with sandboxing and time of click, which I'll go into a little bit more here in a sec. Protecting against phishing, SPF, DKIM, DMARC, header anomaly detection, and then just using our global labs for all that threat intelligence. So, how does that, when we say all this, what does it, really mean? And kind of talked about it a little bit more, but you can kind of see on the video playing there, it's just simply turning things on, such as DMARC, SPF, DKIM, header anomalies, and then we'll go into the more advanced features here in a sec. And so when we look at those advanced features, it's really two things. So we're bringing that machine learning that we have across, our endpoint and firewall into email. And so really what that's doing is email sandboxing. And so when if I sent you an email with a malicious attachment, obviously it's going to hit the Sophos Central email gateway. We're going to basically intercept that, scan it, and if it's, put it through the sandbox, detonate it, see what happens. If we deem it to be suspicious, if it does anything, we're just going to keep it there and not deliver it. And then the other part is the time of click protection. So this one's pretty important because a lot of the spam out there, they've gotten pretty good at how they do this. So they'll send a legitimate email with a URL, and at the time they sent it, the URL is clean so that it doesn't get caught by any filters. And then once that email's been delivered, maybe it's a day later, maybe it's a week later, they basically time bomb it and make that URL go to a bad site, or just change their site, to be malicious. And so what time of click does is basically when that email comes in, every single email is getting scanned and we're rewriting the URL before we deliver. And that's what I'm going to show you guys. And so that way, any link you click, whether it's right when you receive it or maybe it's a month later, we've rewritten it to do a check against our servers and make sure it's still clean. So that'll make a little bit more sense when I show you. But big takeaway is it works with any email. It doesn't matter if it's Office 365, G Suite, Exchange. It's basically a simple MX record change to point to Sophos' servers. We're going to scan it, deliver it if it's clean. If not, we'll keep it in quarantine up there. So kind of a good segue into the Phish threat, which kind of goes along the same way with email. But really the big things I wanted to talk about are our partnership with Ninjio. And so what this is basically animated trainings and some campaigns in there as well. But they're just really nice kind of short videos so if you send out a campaign to your staff, they click on a fake phishing link from the campaign, it's going to enroll them in training, and you have your choice of trainings. And so with this partnership with Ninjio, basically we're able to add new ones once a month with it, and they're really good videos that do kind of a high level training of what is ransomware, what is phishing, whatever it might be. There's a bunch to choose from. And the other exciting thing with PhishThreat is this Outlook add-in, the report phishing report button. And so really what that is, you can see in the screenshot that there will be a new, I guess, button for Outlook, or if you're using Outlook for web, or Gmail, doesn't matter. And really the idea is twofold. So if you send out a campaign, really what you want your users to do is be able to spot that it's a phishing attack, click on the report button. It's going to report back to Sophos Central that, hey, Dan Russell successfully reported this as a phishing email. So you kind of do a congratulations. But the other part is, let's say it's not a phish threat campaign, you can still use that button. It'll notify the administrator as well as Sophos to look at it and see if it's something that we missed. So really excited about that. We should see that here within the next couple weeks as far as launching that. Next is Sophos Wireless. So we just released this summer new AP hardware, which I'll talk about, and some enhancements into how you manage that. So it's kind of looking at what's new. So obviously, like I just said, we just the new APX series hardware. It's all Wave 2, kind of next gen. Performance has just been incredible on them, especially compared to some of the other vendors out of the market. We're extremely pleased there. We brought synchronized security into the access points. I'll talk about that a little bit more. Enhanced rogue AP detection. So if you have evil twin or someone trying to spoof your SSID, we'll be able to detect that and alert on that. And then for bigger deployments, easier onboarding, so bulk, registration. If any of you are familiar with how Sophos Wireless worked in the past, you basically had to register the serial number and then do it again and again. Now you can do that in bulk, which is nice for bigger deployments. So we'll talk a little bit about the hardware real quick. So right now we have 3 new access points, 4th one coming here in a couple November timeframe. But just kind of go through them real quick. So I'll start at the bottom, the APX 320. This one's pretty unique. So it's a 2x2, meaning 2.4 gigahertz radio, 5 gigahertz radio. But what's unique about that one is you can actually run it in dual 5 gigahertz mode. So for high dense deployments where you don't need to support 2.4 gigahertz legacy, you can actually turn that both on, because really what we see in the market is not many people need to support 2.4 gigahertz anymore. And so what they're doing is just shutting off that radio and basically wasting it. So now we're giving you the ability to actually run both radios at 5 gigahertz. So that's pretty cool. The APX 530, so this is going to be more of your kind of general, hey, I need Wi-Fi in the enterprise, good for high density 3x3 radio, but that's going to be kind of when we talk to customers and partners and they're like, yeah, I just need Wi-Fi and we have X amount of users, not a lot of data. It's like, okay, 530 is probably appropriate. It's kind of that more generalized AP 3x3. And then the 740s are high density 4x4 access points. So basically just think of it as more highway lanes for that traffic to come and go. So really good for high dense environments. So if we kind of look at how do we position these, so you see, I talked about the 320, the 530, and the 740. You can see on this slide the APX 120 coming here in a couple months. So that's going to be your low density, just basic, 1 to 2 access points. Don't really care about speed or performance. Hey, I just need Wi-Fi in my environment. That'll be a perfect, low cost, get you the Wi-Fi check mark. And then talked about the 320 running in dual 5 gigahertz mode. So really, the way I look at this one is it's great for K-12 higher ed is kind of how I think of this. If you're going to put an access point in every single classroom in K-12 and you don't need to support 2.4, then that's exactly what that access point's for. And then 530 is kind of that medium, getting a little close to high dense, and then 740 for real dense environments and fast speed. So synchronized security in wireless, how does that work? I described in a little bit of detail how we do it with the firewall. Let's say you don't have an XG firewall and you just have Sophos Endpoint and APX Wireless. So when we look at mobile devices, what we're doing is basically looking at, it's rule-based or looking at compliance. So if you have on your mobile device policy, you say, I don't allow jailbreaking, or I don't allow to root my Android, and that's part of your policy. And if I fall out of compliance, we're going to set that as a red state that'll obviously talk to the access point. And what we're doing is putting a walled garden around it and making it only be able to communicate with Sophos Central until it becomes back in a healthy or compliant state. And then similar deal when we look at endpoint. So it's going to work a lot more the way I described in the firewall. if the endpoint becomes compromised, gets ransomware, it's going to communicate that to the access point, again, put it in that walled garden until it becomes healthy so that it can't talk to any other, whether it be servers or anything else on the network. And this is just kind of showing you the dashboard of what it looks like. So we've got actually a whole panel in Sophos Central that shows you, clients at risk, healthy ones, maybe something's missing, a security heartbeat. So kind of the dashboard view of it, and then in the clients we'll report that as well. And then this is just kind of showing the rogue AP detection. So if if we see an evil twin or an SSID impersonate, we're gonna alert you, categorize that, and then you can also obviously set your own. If you see something out of the norm, you can set your own categorization or classification there. And then this is something coming new that we'll see hopefully in the next central update. And so this is going to be the wireless diagnostics. So we're going to give you event history, audit logs, packet capture, syslog. You can dump all the AP logs to a syslog server. So just a real nice way as you as the administrator to just get, hey, I want to dig in, a client's disassociating or something just doesn't seem right. We're going to give you some pretty good tools to troubleshoot that right out of Central. So those are kind of the highlights of what we did this summer, and then coming here in the next, let's call it 30 to 60 days, kind of what I want to touch on next. And so that's going to be the XG 17.5 firmware release, and then the EDR endpoint detection and response enhancements. So just real quick, kind of what's coming in 17.5. So synchronized security enhancements. So lateral movement protection. I probably didn't do a good job of explaining that previously when we were talking about synchronized security, but as it stands today, that traffic has to traverse that firewall in order to kind of do what we talked about. And so where the problem becomes with that is, let's say you have a somewhat complex or more advanced network where you have a layer 3 switch in between, where sometimes that traffic doesn't actually need to even hit the firewall. So now what we're going to be able to do is not need that traffic to traverse the firewall to isolate that machine and make sure it can't communicate on its own subnet. And then synchronized user ID. So what that is so right now on firewalls, basically to get user identification, you have to sync with Active Directory. Now what we're going to be able to do is utilize that heartbeat and endpoint. So if you have a Windows device, an OS X device that's running Sophos endpoint, it's going to know who's logged in and report that without the need for AD synchronization. So just a little bit cleaner and easier way there. One of the big things I'm excited about is central management. And so what that means is we'll actually have native firewall management within Central. So right now, partners see that, but as a customer, you don't get to manage your firewall within Central. Now you'll be able to. So when you look at Sophos Central and you see endpoint and server and Phish threat and all the products you're licensed for, now you'll see firewall, and you can click on that and manage the XG natively in there instead of having to go to a different dashboard. And then some of the other top requested features. So kind of call this one our education and security authentication release. So Chromebook authentication for any of the K-12 customers. This should be an exciting release where you'll be able to, because most firewalls right now, it just shows the MAC address of the Chromebook. So what we'll be able to do is via Chrome extension is be able to report that user information on the XG for web surfing or anything like that and set policies against. Classroom policy overrides. So if you're a teacher and you got 20 kids in the class and you're trying to do an assignment that you go to the website, it shows blocked for some reason. If I allow that policy, you as the teacher can override it for an entire classroom for a given amount of time. So that'll be nice. And then just some other kind of firewall auto grouping, stuff like that. I won't go into too much detail on all these. And then another nice one is the Sophos Connect IPsec client. And so this is going to be more, right now we have the SSL client that we give you, which is really nice, but the IPsec one's going to give you a little bit more flexibility. Like maybe you want to have it auto connect on log off or restart or something like that. It's going to act more, if you're familiar with like Windows Direct Access, where it's just kind of that always on VPN connection. So that's that'll be exciting. And this is just kind of a view of what it's going to look like in Central. I mean, pretty straightforward. We're looking at Sophos Central and we're looking at XG natively. But some of the things that's going to bring, obviously it'll manage it, with all your other products, which is exciting. Full single sign-on management into your XG, alerting, licensing, performance information within Central, zero touch deployment. So if you're a Sophos Central customer and you don't have XG and now you buy XG, what Pine Cove or you as the customer can do is actually go into Central, get it all set up for you, and then once you plug in that XG in your environment, it's going to sync all those settings for you. So that's a pretty welcoming feature there. And then if you have multiple devices, be able to mass deploy firmware updates from the customer side, and then if you want to do your backups to Central, we'll provide that. So moving on, the last thing is endpoint detection and response. And so really what this is taking what we're giving you right now in that root cause analysis, that visual representation, and adding to it. So right now, if any of you are familiar with EDR, there's a few things. It's really difficult to use. A lot of times, what you need is a full security staff to kind of analyze what you're looking at. So it's obviously very expensive, and a lot of times without that staff, it's kind of a useless tool. And so really what we're doing with endpoint detection and response is just making it a lot more easy to use and understand. So when you see information about a threat come in, make it human readable instead of needing a whole security team to digest a bunch of data that it's dumped in there. And so really, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. What is EDR? So really what it is root cause analysis right there, or what we have right now, but then being able to do more with that. So you get a threat case come in and you see, okay, yeah, Outlook was the root cause. Here's the beacon event. That's great information. I want to know, do any of the other machines on my network have this? Have they been impacted? So you can, the industry terms kind of hunt and kill. So if you see that, you can hit search. It'll search across your entire estate and see if maybe that executable is on any other machines. And if it is, we'll go ahead and clean it, block it, make sure it doesn't. Machine isolation. So that root cause analysis comes in, I want to isolate that device while I'm investigating what's going on. So just a real nice kind of feature set to kind of add on to what we have in our EDR root cause analysis right now. So that's kind of it for updates. Getting a little bit close on time, so I just want to show you real quick the email portion of it. We talked about that time of click, and I just kind of want to show you how that works, and then we'll do a couple, see if any questions have come in, and go from there. So just real quick, kind of show you what the email gateway looks like in Central. So when I log in, I get kind of that dashboard overview, so I can see I've been protected against 10 potential threats. I can see all the spam and viruses that have come through my outbound email summary. So obviously small little demo environment, but one outbound email wasn't a spam or virus. That's a good thing. And then the sandstorm. So this is basically emails that had attachments that may or may not have been suspicious. So we can see of those 8 emails that came in with attachments, 5 of them were legit according to Sandstorm in our sandbox, and 3 of them actually had a malicious attachment that we stopped and kept it away from the inbox. So the other thing I just kind of wanted to show is what that looks like from a policy standpoint. So not a whole lot you really need to set up. It's kind of just on there for you. So we see that DMARC, SPF, DKIM, header anomaly, just added layers of security. That time of click protection and Sandstorm, just kind of on off. And what I wanted to really show you here was the time of click. And so what do we want to do with these sites that we deem to be high risk, medium risk, or we just can't verify it? So in my policy, I have high risk websites to block. That's probably a good thing. Medium risk, maybe you want to warn those rather than full out blocking it. And then unverified, I'm just setting to warn. And so when we look at the logs for that, I'll show you so in the last couple of days, just kind of done some tests of what I want to show you. So we're giving you a report of all the clicks that have happened. So we can see on the 27th, we had, 8 good clicks. A couple of the sites were maybe a little suspicious, so we warned the end user, and then a couple of them were just flat out malicious. So I want to show you kind of how that works and how that looks. So this email that I sent to myself for this demo account, I can see, 3, well, all links that kind of show what they are. Because remember, I talked about URL rewriting, and so hopefully this will show here is, so we see ESPN.com. If I hover over that, if you look down here at the bottom of the page, when I hover over that, you can see it's actually rewritten to Sophos.com. So when that email came in, we rewrote it, and same thing for all of these, and just kind of show you how that works. So even though the actual link for that goes to Sophos.com, when we click on it, sorry about that. So when we click on that, we can see it actually goes to the real site, and there's really no delay. It's just rewriting it real quick, checking. But let's see what it looks like. So here's a couple unverified sites. So this one's legitimate, jpmorgan.com. That should take us right there. But you can see this one, and this is a common spamming technique, is there's an extra R in there. So it looks, as the end user, if I look at that just real quick, yeah, that looks like a legit link. So I'll click on that, but it's not the right link. So I'm going to give based on the policy that I showed you guys, I'm warning them like, hey, just maybe use caution on this. And if I look at that and say, well, yeah, that looks like the right site, okay, I'll just proceed anyway. And if it was malicious, if it actually was malicious, we wouldn't even allow you to go there, and it would look more like this. So this is a true suspicious malicious site. We don't even give the end user the chance to go there. So hopefully that kind of made sense, but it's just a real great added level of protection for things that might kind of slip through. So with that, I think that's pretty much all I had. And Brandon, I'll kick it to you and see if we had any questions.
Cool. Thanks, Dan. So in the chat section there, I added a couple links. One of them is to our YouTube channel. So we record all of these webinars. So you can see this one. We'll probably have it up by tomorrow or by Monday. And you can see all the other webinars that we've done on that site. I also put my email address in there if you need any follow-up information, demo, proof of concept, whatever you want to see as a follow-up. You can email me directly, and we'll get working on it. As far as questions go, I have a couple of them, and please, if you have one, throw it in there. So the first question is there a license associated with Synchronized security?
Yeah, so good question. No, there is no license. There's nothing to buy. So when you buy the XG firewall and Sophos Endpoint, for example, you get Synchronized security as part of that. It's basically a kind of on-off switch that you enable. But no, there's no extra licensing or cost associated with that.
Okay. Next question, does time of click protection work on mobile devices, or is it just Outlook?
Yeah, so yeah, definitely on mobile devices. So if you think of it as, we don't really care what, if you're on a browser or Outlook or on a mobile device, because as that email came in, we rewrote that URL. And so whatever device you're looking on, whether it's a mobile device or what I just showed you in a web browser or Outlook, that email's been rewritten, or that link has prior to delivery. So when you click on it, you're going to get the same experience no matter what device you're on.
Okay. And it looks like the final question I have here is Intercept X for servers an additional license?
Yeah, so the short answer is no. So it's not an add-on the way for any current Sophos customers that were kind of used to the way Intercept used to be treated. It's not an add-on anymore. So that's actually just the name of the product. So all of those feature sets we're giving you as Intercept X for server. as the product name. Now, a nice little bonus for anybody that was running what used to be called Server Advanced license, you automatically got upgraded for free to Intercept X for servers. So like I said, nice little bonus there. All you got to do is on that one slide I showed, just go in there and turn on those features in the policy, and you just all of a sudden have Intercept X for servers.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Dan, for the presentation, and thanks for everyone that joined. We appreciate the attendance, and please join us for our ongoing webinars. And again, if any additional follow-up is needed, please email me at the address I put in the chat window. Thanks again, and have a great Labor Day weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.